You're listening to Dropping Pins, a story-based learning series from the OKS Hunter podcast, hosted by Derek Melkor, and aimed at helping you hone your whitetail hunting skills. You'll hear the aha moments when known and unknown proven whitetail killers started consistently putting mature bucks on the ground.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Dropping Pins podcast. I apologize for my inability to publish these episodes consistently throughout the fall, but turns out I really like hunting. So I've been skipping out on a few episodes here, and the last episode that just came out was actually just like a little video blog of myself doing some scouting in the northeastern national forest area that my family and I have been hunting for years. And we're just kind of getting prepped up for this upcoming weekend. When this airs, it will be the Monday of Wisconsin's 9-day firearm season. So opening weekend will have come and passed. But for us right now in real time, that's just a couple days away. So most of Wisconsin, we got a rich hunting heritage, a lot of gun hunters. So everybody's kind of looking forward to the Orange Army, and I know there's a lot of people who aren't looking forward to that too because they're diehard bow hunters. But it is what it is, and here in Wisconsin, that's part of the culture. So I got some good scouting in. I'm pretty excited for the weekend, not just for the hunting part, but I'll get to spend some time with my mom and my dad, and that's kind of our little hunting camp. So that's a lot of fun. But I'm excited to talk with a guest. So you should be excited too, because you don't have to listen to me ramble on and on. But we've got another big buck killer guest on tonight who is absolutely deadly with archery equipment and is a true diehard bow hunter from probably the most hardcore bow hunter family that I have ever met. Tonight we're going to have on our good buddy Blake Bilo of Ghost Bucks Hunting and buddy of one of my best buds, Bo. So you guys have heard me talk about these guys forever. Blake, his dad, and then his cousin Bo and his dad, their family and Blake's brothers, and they're just eaten up with whitetail hunting. These guys are, like the most, I don't want to just say serious, but they're just so knowledgeable in what they do and what they've done over the years that I think we're probably going to have these folks on multiple times because they have just such a great understanding of what's going on in the deer woods that we'd love to hear as many stories as possible. But one of the things that was pretty exciting for Blake is he had a phenomenal year in the deer woods while he just became a dad and has his first fall as a dad. So he's got his little man at home, but he still found a way to be successful. And that's just a testament to knowing what you're doing and putting in the time and the work and letting that all pay off for you. So I would like to welcome to the show, Blake Bilo. Blake,
hey,
how you doing, buddy?
What an introduction. Doing good.
Yeah, I'm glad you picked. I'm glad you picked a room that had none of your bucks up in it, because it's overwhelming. I've got to see Blake and his dad's storage shed up in the Northwoods, and man, these guys have a pile of bucks. So it's good to have you on, buddy.
Yeah, still in the starter home, so I don't really have an area to put them right now. But we're looking to move here, and I'm looking to make my own little man cave downstairs at our new house. So hopefully by the end of the winter, we'll be in there. But yeah.
That's super cool. Hey, just want to start off by saying congrats on your little guy. He's got to be how old is he already? 6 months, 8 months?
7 months today, and he actually took his first steps last week while we were at the Illinois hunting camp.
No way. That's so exciting.
Yeah. Like he went from just a hanging out baby just fine, and now he's just, I want to move. I want to go everywhere.
We won't make this, just about toddlers here or babies, but man, that's the scariest time is when you get used to being able to do stuff because you can just set them down on the blanket and you go take care of some things, fold some laundry, and then you put them down, you turn around and they're gone.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, before you know it, blink of an eye, and he'll be following dad into the deer woods.
Oh, I can't wait. I already had him out. So I have this little backpack carrier in the front. I brought him out a couple different times, checking trail cameras and stuff. And I think I have a picture here of him. I'll try to show it on year, but we found some really good sign and rubs.
That's
That was
super
pretty
cool that you're taking them out with you and just, making that kind of a normal thing
I don't know if
already.
you can see it very well, but he's like smiling and stuff.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, you
that's
can't really
cool.
see.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
awesome, man.
it's been awesome. And it's phenomenal having a wife that I have, and she's just very supportive of what I love to do and allows me to get out hunting a lot, to say the least.
Well, I think that was a very due thanks. So I think let's toast to the wives out here, just because without them holding down the fort and letting us do what we want to do, we're not going to be as successful as we want to be. So thanks to the wives. We appreciate the time you let us sneak off into the woods.
Yeah, but just to get into a little bit more of my background, I know we talked about this backstage, but I think you want me to get into that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Dive in
All right.
wherever you think you got something to add for it.
Yeah, so I mean, you gave me a great introduction. My family is huge into bow hunting. Me, Bo, my uncle Doug, my dad Greg, and my uncle Jeff. We've really been successful over the years. So they brought me up in hunting. So ever since I could remember, it was all hunting. Every single blood trail when I was a kid, there was 10 to 12 people in the woods, all family, just having a good time and just teaching it the right way growing up. So that's been something special, to say the least. The way I grew up hunting, primarily private land. Some bigger chunks when I was first starting, more of like your 300+ acres, which was really nice, but that slowly kind of dwindled as I got older, as hunting got more popular for private land access and stuff like that. But I've been lucky enough to hunt kind of all over the U.S. for anywhere from the Midwest states of Wisconsin, Kansas, Missouri, Illinois. I've been out to Montana when I was a senior in high school. That was a blast. Wasn't successful out there, but it was fun. I've been down to South Texas, which is a whole different world for whitetails. We could do a whole separate podcast on that. But basically leading up, just slowly lost access through private land through high school, and just was scraping and clawing to keep private access throughout the years. And it got to a point in like 2020 when we kind of lost our last piece. And then we paid for a lease, and it didn't turn out to be very good. And that's when I moved from north central Wisconsin, down to Madison with my wife at the time, my girlfriend at the time, now my wife. And basically I was like, well, I'm not going to find much access down here that's not already hunted on private. So I was like, let's try the public route, because I was really excited. So my first season on public land officially was 2022, but I've dabbled in public up in northern Wisconsin late season if I still had a tag. But 2022 is really my first season. So I spent a lot of time just like walking, boots on the ground, many different public pieces, because there's a lot of different public pieces around me.
Are they mostly small acreage pieces, or do you have any like larger pieces down there?
Oh yeah, we have some pretty good large pieces. I wouldn't say anything like crazy. There's probably a couple sections that are close to anywhere from 600 to 1,000 acres, but some of the sections that I hunt, one of my favorite one is actually like I want to say it's like a 40-acre section.
Well, that's cool.
Which
yeah, sometimes
they overlook this spot. And actually the first year that I hunted, right close to my house, there's this public spot. And I was like, there's no way there's going to be deer here. It's right next to the city. So I walked in there and I'm like, holy shit, there's a rub. There's a rub. There's a rub. There's a giant scrape. I'm like, well, I'm going to put a camera up here and see what happens. And that was my best camera that year. I probably had 10 deer over 120, which was insane to me on public land. But it was all at midnight. I didn't have one mature buck in daylight. So that year I hunted that spot a couple times on like colder mornings to see, hey, maybe it'll spark them to be in the morning. Which it didn't, I'm not surprised now that I think about it. But growing up primarily private, it's caused me to be a little more conservative, because growing up private, you don't want to bump deer onto the neighbor's property and stuff like that. And your best time to hunt end of October, November. So leading up to that, you don't want to push in too far. So that was kind of my mentality that first year. And so that's what I kind of hunted. So I saw a lot of small bucks, a lot of yearlings, a couple 2.5s. I passed on a lot of nice 2-year-olds, but I wanted that 3+ year-old caliber buck to challenge myself a little bit. And I've got a lot of nice camera pictures and stuff. There was this one piece that I fell in love with, but it was so hard to access. There's water up to like mid shin level, and it was those mounds and cattail swamps and stuff like that. It was
Oh, those are
constant.
the worst.
Oh my God. It was
That's
straight
like those,
mile walking through there.
and I think they call them like hummocks, or like, those raised
Yeah.
ground pieces and it's all tall grass. So like, if you're looking really close, you can see them while you're walking and kind of avoid them. But man, if you're like trying to look around, they can be really hard to see. It is just a freaking nightmare, especially at dark. If you're going in the morning and dark or coming out, that shit sucks. I feel you on that one, dude.
Oh, for sure. And that's a spot that I still dream about, because it was just this giant little creek that ran through this piece of public. And there was islands of like high grounds where there were some oaks, and it was just beautiful, really hard to hunt, but just really cool. And I only went back there. I only went back there once. And after like the creek, it went up onto this giant ridge, and this ridge ran for probably 400 yards. And it was just beautiful. And I have a couple pictures of like a 160 class 10 back there.
Wow.
Just never got eyes on him. I only hunted it once, because the one time I went back there, I didn't get back home until like, let's say it got dark around 6. I didn't get back until like 10:30. My wife was a little
Holy
upset
cow.
at that. She was worried for me, because I didn't bring
she
any
was
water.
She was probably ready to call 911, or I mean, you hear
Yeah.
horror stories, but sometimes it just takes that long.
Oh, for sure. Especially in those moguls and like in dark and stuff like that. I lost my way like once, and then used my Onyx app to find my way back. And she called me like twice on the way out. I'm like, I'm still walking.
Oh yeah.
So that was 2022. The only thing that sucked about 2022 for me is it was good, but it sucked, is that I had my Illinois tag that I get every year, and then I also drew Kansas. So basically, I spent a week in Illinois and a week in Kansas. So 2 weeks during the rut. I mean, that eats up a big chunk of time, and you don't get as much of that good period where the Bucks are
I think a
moving
question for you, Blake. So
Yeah.
that your first like kind of dedicated season, you're in a new area of the state for you, because you guys moved to this different area. Sounds like you spread your wings out. We're looking for some good properties, some properties to help promise, and you're getting good deer. How was the pressure that first year? Did was it more guys than you expected? Was it less? Did you find cameras, stands, or were you feeling like you were kind of avoiding the crowds? How did that all go?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of everything. I think I expected about the amount of people that I saw. There were some pieces of public that I didn't scout that I'm pretty sure those are going to be heavily hunted. And when I pass them in the mornings and stuff like that, there's a truck, that kind of deal. So I really was strategic on where I wanted to hunt. I wanted to look at A, overlooked spots, and B, really, really hard to get to spots. So I was willing to outwork everyone to get to a spot where they weren't willing to go. So the biggest thing that I looked for, especially off season, is basically just transition lines, thick cover, just because deer just tend to travel those lines of just transitions, cover, that kind of area. So that's kind of what I focused on then. And when I was preseason scouting, like I looked for old rubs. Those it's harder to see, and some late season scrapes you can still see. But basically, when I was late season scouting, I just kind of looked for those transitions and look for trees that I'm like, okay, I could hang and hunt there. Or there were some spots that I did hunt on the ground too. But yeah, that's kind of what that first year of scouting and hunting, what I looked for.
And you kind of, when you're looking for unpressured public land in southern Wisconsin, I think that yeah, it's funny to think about that. But one of the things that I think you almost have to be open to is hunting off the ground. I mean, if you're not open to that, I think you really, really do pigeonhole yourself a little bit, because first of all, a lot of the public grounds in southern Wisconsin are just the property or lands that farmers could not farm or didn't want. So you're getting a ton of lowland stuff that already is limited of trees. And then the emerald ash borer killed most of the lowland ash trees. And any tree that's pretty much huntable has probably been hunted by someone at some point. So the deer do get rather educated to the areas that have, like the nice spots that you would want to hunt. Most of those aren't worth a shit because the deer are already wary of those areas. So I think putting yourself on the ground your first season and knowing that going in, you're already open up a whole bunch of doors of opportunity that a lot of guys who I need to be in a tree to hunt are kind of just taking themselves out of it. You know what I mean? They're like shooting themselves in the foot before they even get started.
Yeah, you hit it right on the head there, especially the buckthorn and how thick some of those areas are. Like you may have a perfect tree and you get up even 5-10 feet and you can't shoot to the bottom of your tree.
It's true.
And then you sit on the ground and you can shoot 20-30 yards in some spots.
Absolutely. You stick out a little bit because it is so open, but you got to take your chances, right? Like just got to be diligent, be ready, and then try to take your chances, because there's so much buckthorn down here, and the deer absolutely use it and relate to it. Just figuring out those nuances of how to hunt it, like you said, that becomes a big part of it.
Yeah. So 2022 was a learning experience for sure. Didn't help that Illinois and Kansas took up my rut in Wisconsin. I was still able to hunt late October, the pre-rut, which is my favorite time to get in the woods because it's before everyone's rutcations, especially on public land.
Yep.
So that leads us into the 2023 season. So in between 2022 and 2023, I did a lot of scouting again. I found a new piece of public that I was really interested in, but it was like, man, it just doesn't look like it would hold a lot of deer. There was one egg field around there. There wasn't really any oaks in the area that I wanted to hunt, but it interested me. It was a big cattail marsh for the most part. So I was like, man, it looks pretty good. So I did some scouting. I didn't go very far into it with my late season scouting, whether it was time crunch or whatever, but that's the actual spot that I ended up killing this deer. So 2023, I paid attention to it and kind of went around the edges, but 2023 was the big buck year for me on public land, which was funny because this 40 acres piece that I was talking about, I had probably the biggest buck I've ever had on camera, public land or private land. And
that was a huge buck. I think you sent me pictures of that one last year. That was a big deer.
This was a 180 class. It was like a typical 10 with some trash on the G2s and a little off the base as well. Just a ghost buck. I had it on my camera probably 7 different times throughout the season. I had it in daylight right at dawn once, and that was on like October 15th. I was like, why would I hunt on October 15th in the morning?
Right.
And I think I checked the camera on like October 17th, because most of my cameras I set in the woods and let it soak and check at the end of the year for the most part. Or if I sit that area, I'll pull the card. And I pulled the card and I wasn't expecting much from this spot because it was a tiny piece that was like, there's got to be so many people hunting this. And then I flipping through chips. I was like, oh, wow, 120, 125 inch 8-pointer wide. I was like, man, I'd shoot that. And then I clicked 2 more pictures and I just go, whoa. I thought I was getting pranked, but there's no one there to prank me. And I had the full body of the deer and the rack just perfect, just right in front of the camera at night. It's just like, it's a buck you drool about.
What kind of setup? I'm just curious. So you're using an SD card camera on some of these properties, sounds like. What
Mhm.
like that camera in particular, what were you looking at? What was it pointed at? What were you trying to get for movement? And like is that consistent, or like, like there's some guys who only hang their cameras on scrapes? What's kind of like your mindset hanging camera on public land in that
Yeah.
instance?
So in this spot, it was just this tiny, I would say it's probably 40 yards wide by 80 yards long, just thick cover. And on the one side, there's that thick kind of nasty buckthorn. And then the other side, it's more open where you can kind of shoot 20, 30 yards. And so I kind of put it not right on the transition, but you could see where they use like runways and stuff. So I kind of found two different runways that kind of came together leading out to an ag field. So that's kind of where I put it early in the season when I got him on camera there. And then more when I checked the camera mid-October, that's when I found some scrapes, some rubs. So I put it on a fresh scrape, made another mock scrape, and then put it on video mode there. So then
Gotcha.
it depends on the scenario. Early season, more transitions, runways. If you do find a good scrape early season, which it is possible, those are always hot. Granted, they're more midnight movement for the most part. But yeah, early season, more transitions, acorns, runways. Usually mid-October is when I start transitioning to where historical scrapes have been, or if I find fresh scrapes or rubs or anything like that, or close to doe bedding that I know
Gotcha.
that deer are going to be running around. So that's kind of my mentality towards the cameras and stuff. And I don't really use a lot of like camera data while I'm hunting too. I like to try to hunt the sign, and that's what changed too. And with hunting public, which I love, and I'm actually kind of trending away from cameras as we go closer, as I get further in my hunting career.
Yeah. Cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for diving off into that. I just was curious and thought it would be,
Yeah.
because there's so many guys that run so many cameras, but when I'm walking around in the woods, I see cameras in some really interesting locations. And I'd always wonder, like, why the hell would somebody put a camera there? Or like, what was the thought
Mhm.
process? Do they know something I don't know? Or like, am I overlooking something? So I just was curious as to what you were kind of looking at when you got the picture of that giant. So, all right, you
Yeah.
can
And
dive
funny,
back in. Sorry.
actually, I've got one more topic on cameras and in-cell cameras. Cell cameras, it seems like some of those big mature deer tend to tip off with cell cameras. Like I've been seeing that, especially in Illinois, some of those bigger mature deer, they'll avoid cameras. And you'll get 1-2 pictures of them early season, and then all of a sudden, hey, they're gone. You'll pick them up on a different cell camera on the other side of the property, gone. And then you switch a cell camera up. Oh, there he is. 1 picture, 2 pictures, gone. And then like it just seems like it tips them off. And I've actually heard some other podcasts because I listen to a lot of podcasts about hunting. They've done studies about frequency that the cell cams give out. And it's so compared to regular cameras to cell cameras, the cell cameras give off a higher frequency that obviously we can't pick up, but the deer must be able to. And some bucks, they don't care. Some mature bucks, they don't care about it whatsoever. But there are some bucks that do tip it off, and you won't get pictures of them. But when it comes down to like, it's funny because I run a multitude of different styles of cameras that I picked up throughout the years. And one of my favorite cameras that I actually like is the Walmart brand Tasco. When I picked these cameras up, I think I bought my first one for like $33. I was like, well, we'll see how this thing does. That's the one camera that I haven't seen a deer like staring at it. I've yet to see a deer stare at it and like pick it off, which is insane to me.
Yeah, that's anybody who's followed like the Okayest Hunter podcast. I think we've talked about it a bunch on there, but I ran those Tascos for the last probably 5 years. You could get them on deals for like $25 a pop. And the Tascos I like the older model ones actually better when they kind of first came out. Those were pretty good. And then they did something different with the formatting a couple of years ago. And like the SD card readers you could get for like your phone. So like, because I always like to hang cameras and I don't like to check them during season, like you said, unless I'm going to that stand. So I kind of always hung my cameras in spots that I could access without goofing up the spot so that in case like I check the camera and there's good stuff on it, I haven't walked across the trails where they're going to come in on, you know what I mean? So like I always wanted to check them on my way in, but whatever they did with the formatting, like you couldn't look at it on an SD card reader as easily as you could like in years past. So that kind of drove me nuts. And then I got on these like wild view cameras that you could get a 4-pack for $100 on Camel Fire. And those actually I like better than the Tascos, but I'm a big fan of cheapy cameras.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. So that was basically 2023, similar to 2022. I was still a little conservative, pushed a little further into some areas. But I primarily hunted this one deer, which I don't blame. I wouldn't change anything about it because like when you have an opportunity at a caliber deer like that, like I will take that opportunity all day long. So I tried for him quite a bit. Never got in front of him. Never got a sighting or anything like that. Saw a couple nice bucks. Again, a couple nice 2-year-olds. I think I saw one junky 3-year-old that I passed because I was waiting for that big one. And then the season ended. I think I put a couple public lands late season hunts in and threw some cameras out, but my cameras got stolen, surprisingly, late season public land hunting, which sucked. Yeah.
That sucks, man.
Yep, but it is what it is. Season closed, and then it was the March of 2024 is when I got out, and I was like, okay, I'm getting it done this next year. And so I just was walking through everything off season, anything, the thicker, the better, just trying to figure stuff out in most of the spots that I know. Because I had great deer on camera both years. So I know where they are, and I can imagine where they're bedding, what travels they use during the rut and stuff like that. So I pushed way deep and got to the spot that I killed this buck this year. I pushed as far as I possibly could back with my knee-high boots where I could still get to, and I found this little raised spot where it was dry, and everything around it was wet. And it was just matted down, hair everywhere. I'm like, if this isn't a buck bed, I don't know what is. It was just like
that's always it's always such a cool feeling when you like find something, when you know, like sometimes you go back to these spots and like it doesn't pan out, but when you find sign like that like that light bulb goes off, you're like, shit, dude, it freaking like it is what I hoped it was. That's a tough feeling to beat.
Oh, for sure. And like I found this spot and I was like, yep. And I kicked up a big deer and I could hear it just running through all the cattails and the thick shit. And I just knew it was a buck as it was running away. So I got a good GoPro video of the bed and everything. And from the tree where I ended up setting up, this bed's probably 80 yards, maybe. So I went in August to set up a cell cam. So that was the one thing I put on the cell cam. But with the cell cam, I didn't put it on the main runways. I didn't put it where I thought all the deer action would be. I put it in a spot to where, because I knew there was going to be good deer in this area. So I put it in a spot where I might get a deer that might cross in front of it every once in a while for the most part. And I got some really nice deer on camera doing that. And not consistently, of course, but like I just didn't want to tip any big deer off. That was my main thing. Because there's a really nice piece of private there as well that they could avoid the public with. So I put that cell camera out, got out of there in August and just left it. And when I went in there in August, this cattails and canary grass and all this stuff is well over my head. Most spots are 8-9 feet. The shortest spot are at like 5'10". It's just thicker than crap. And it was like the tree I picked out in late season. I'm like, there's no way I can hunt here out of a tree. There's no way I can hunt here off the ground. I was kind of disappointed. And then I was like, okay, just wait for the first frost. It should knock a lot of stuff down. So luckily we got a decent frost in mid to late October, which knocked a lot down. I could even see it on the cell camera. So I was like, oh, okay, good. So the first like good cold late October day, I went in there for the first time. I think it was October 25th. It was just another good cold front moving in, and I brought in some sticks and stuff that I was going to leave in, some older sticks that I brought in there and some screw steps. And so I screw stepped up like 3 feet. No, I stepped up like 6 feet and then put a stick, and I was able to use, there was actually old screw steps in this tree that were still pretty sturdy.
Cool.
So I used those and then got up to a different level, and I didn't even have to put a platform in because there was 3 branches that came in and there was a natural platform in the tree.
And you're hunting out of a saddle?
Yeah.
So it just worked out perfect to stand on those branches? Oh, that's awesome.
So I'm like, well, I don't need to set my platform up here. And then I was like, this would be such a kick-ass rifle spot. So I put one more stick up a little bit higher, and I got about 10 more feet higher. And that's going to be my rifle set for this weekend. But so I got that set up, and the first night, it's just one of those spots when you get it set up, you get in the tree and you're getting ready and you just have that feeling like it could happen any minute. It's my favorite spot that I've ever found by far.
That's
private
so cool.
or public. Yeah. And it's just one of those spots where I was just like, I feel like it could happen now. And that night I think I saw 5 yearlings and a couple does, but I could see the private cut cornfield, and there was, I think 2 for sure 3+-year-old deer out there. So I was like, I know they're in the area. So got down, hunted a couple other spots after the wind changed. And then it was November 1st. And I had a couple meetings in the morning. I got done with my meetings at like 10:30. I had to make a couple phone calls, and then I was off to the public piece. Show up to the public piece. No one's in the parking lot. Start getting ready. Forget my camera at home. So I'm like, shit. So I run back to the house, pick up my camera, get back. And by the time I get back, actually there was a truck in the parking lot, but it's known for a lot of like dog walkers. So
okay,
in the one section of it. So I parked my truck the second time, and there's a dead doe laying there. So I was like, oh, sweet. Someone was successful. But in the back of my mind, I was like, shit, where'd you shoot it?
Yeah.
And so I got to talk.
Yeah.
I got talking to the guy, and he was awesome. He's like, yeah, I shot this 1.25 miles back there. I was like, uh-oh, that sounds right where I want to go. And so I was like, after talking to him, I'm like, man, that's awesome. You smoked it. Props to you for dragging this deer 1.25 miles out, not quartering it out or anything. And I was like, there was a map on the bulletin board or whatever. I was like, do you mind showing me where you shot it? And he points this little finger. It's close to where I'm hunting. So my gears are turning. Do I go try somewhere else? Should I still go back and hunt there? I was like, so where'd it run? Where'd it die? Do you think you boogered much out of there? He goes, no, it was a pretty clean drag. It died right away. I got it out of there pretty good at like 10 o'clock. So I was like, okay, it was later morning, so I don't think it was too crazy. I'm like, this is my favorite spot. I'm going back there. So I get back there. I think I finally got set up around like 11:30, maybe a little later. No, it was more like noon. I got set up around like noon, 12:30. And as soon as I get set up, all of a sudden I hear grunting to the north. I was like, it didn't sound like a big buck, but it was enough to like, all right, let's see what happens. I tried grunting a couple times, and I can just hear it running away. It must be chasing a doe or something. Couldn't get the attention. I was like, well, that's a good sign for today. Another hour goes by, and I'm hearing something again to my north. So I'm like, man, there could be a buck just bedded back there with a doe or something. And as I'm filming with my GoPro and talking to the GoPro, doe pops out at 40 yards to the south. I was like, dang, I'm seeing a lot of deer for a middle of the day. I was just high on just sitting. It was just beautiful day. It was cold. The wind was so minimal that it kept swirling, and it was supposed to be that's what was crazy. It was supposed to go from a northeast to a north to a northwest to a west to a southwest. And I was like, man, it sucked. No matter where you sat, you were going to be screwed at some time. And luckily, the wind was so minimal when I first started hearing the buck that I ended up shooting, it was actually coming from the east. just nuts because the buck was to the east. So the wind was hitting in my face. Perfect. I was like, this wind could switch at any moment. I was so nervous. So I started hearing this buck at 1:45, and I hear just a weird snort wheeze. It was really faint. I was like, was that a snort wheeze? I was like, that's weird. And I wait a little bit longer. Sure enough, distinct snort wheeze. I was like, okay, that's got to be a mature buck. So I sat there.
Is this coming from the direction of that bed
No.
that you had scouted? Do you
Nope,
think he was
yeah, completely.
spot?
So the bed was this way, the buck was this way. If that makes sense. So the bed was north.
Yep.
Northwest of the stand. The buck was completely east of the stand. So that started the battle when I heard that second snort wheeze. So then I keep most of the time I keep like my bow rope attached to a stick or something at the bottom of the tree to make noise at the bottom of the tree. And so I did that a little bit, and that got the buck's attention. So he snort wheezed again. And then it was a battle of like, he grunted a couple times with snort wheeze, and then I would try to snort wheeze to get him out, because the furthest away was about like 60, 70 yards to the opening to where we'd come. So if I can get him into the opening 10 yards, just get him interested, I could get a shot. And so I battled with this buck for 45 minutes, just grunting, snort wheezing, breaking the tree with a branch, anything that I could do to try to get this buck to come out of the thick stuff. And nothing was working. And right around the 30-minute mark, out pops this half-rack 2.5-year-old. And my heart went, you're kidding me. That's the buck? That was the buck in there? He had the full right side busted off. And he had his brow tine and his G2 on the left side busted off. It was a really nice 2-year-old, just really busted up. I'm like, God dang it. This thing was in there ripping stuff up. And then, so this buck ends up looping around a little bit and goes back into this thick stuff. And I hear another snort wheeze. And I was like, different deer. Thank God. And that's when like I could see brush just being raked. This buck chased the other buck off. At that point, I'm like, there's a doe in there. There's a hot doe in there, guaranteed. So right around the 45-minute mark, out pops the doe. So then because I turned my camera off at that point, I'm just waiting for something to happen. And doe pops out. I was like, here we go. Pop record. I don't even think I got the doe on video at all. And out pops this buck, and all of a sudden I just see frame. I was like, shoot her. Because this buck, I think it measured at
that's the one.
Yeah, it measured at like 17 and like 5/8 width. Yeah, so
nice.
It pops out at like 60, 65 yards. And the doe only stays in the opening for like 15 yards and jets in. Maybe a little longer. But that buck pops out, and I know that buck's not going to stay in the opening for long. So what I do when I get set, I range a bunch of different spots all over the place. So I don't really have to pull out my rangefinder for the most part. I'm really good with numbers, so I'm good at remembering what yardages are what. So where the doe crossed in was about 40 to 45 yards. On the close side of the trail was more 40. On the far side of the trail was 45. So then that buck takes the same trail. And luckily, it wasn't like a fast-paced like chase or anything like that. Buck must have been tending her for hours and just was tired. You could see his mouth was open the whole time. And so the buck follows that trail going right towards the doe. So I was like, it's now or never. And I just have my camera slightly zoomed in the general vicinity. And when I drew back, I had my camera arm in front of me, and I thought it was far enough in front, but I ended up having to like push it forward a little bit. So I was like, oh shit, is he out of frame now? I was like, well, it doesn't matter anyways. So I was going to shoot it no matter what. At that point, I'm like, I got a good enough video now, but I'm drawn back, And as soon as I'm drawing back and kind of get the pins close to this deer, my pins just start bouncing. I was like, uh-oh. At 45 yards, I can't shoot this. So I just took a second and I was like, steadied myself, and then I was able to get my 40-yard pin just buried. I was like, this feels phenomenal. I touch it off, and this is my first year shooting a thumb release. And I touch it off, and I just see the arrow perfectly go right into that like knuckle, into that V of that front leg, and just bury. And I was like, yep, he's done. He goes crushing through the buckthorn. You can just see the bushes explode as he goes in. And I hear him crash through a couple things and stop. And I'm just sat there and listened for a second. And then it's that perfect initial crash and then stop and then crash again. And so then at that point, I just on a whole new level, because this was such I've killed a lot of big deer and I get excited about it every time, but this was just something completely new. Shooting a big caliber buck like this on public land was just something completely different, and it was just so much fun. And I shot it at 230, and I just sat up in my stand and enjoyed it. And I called my wife right away. And then I was basically, after I got off the phone with my wife, I was texting and calling everyone for probably 30 minutes. Whoever was picking up the phone, I was talking to. So that was me. And it was probably the longest I've sat up in a tree knowing that the deer was dead ever. Because I just sat up there and just enjoyed the whole scenery, the whole moment. And then once I got down, I just took my time and videoed everything and took in the moment. It was so awesome. So then
badass.
The video is gonna be so awesome. I can't wait for it to come out. It's probably gonna be a while before, because Ghost Bucks have a lot of video coming.
Yeah, the footage is stacking up nicely, but hey, congratulations, man. I know you got a little bit more to tell on your story for sure, but just want to say congrats. That's a hard-earned buck. That's what it's all about, man. Good for you.
Obviously, it's not my biggest buck. I've shot in several bucks bigger than this one, but this buck is by far probably my favorite deer that I've shot. Just because of the story.
Yeah. Such a cool story with the snort wheezing, and that's just, that's not something you get to experience every day, and to get to do that on a spot you scouted and kind of planned out, that's freaking awesome,
for sure. So then I finally.
So how was the No, I was just gonna say. So how did the end of the recovery go? And
so another story on top of that story. So yeah, I finally got down after 30 minutes, and I went to where I shot, and he was about 3 yards from getting into the thick stuff before, maybe a little further, when I shot him. And so I got into that first 3 yards, the blood was already pouring out both sides, and you could tell it was just spraying. So I step into the cover, and I'm talking to myself in the GoPro, and I get over this first little berm of brush, and boom, there he is. He went 25 yards. It's just crazy. Yeah. And I walked up on this deer, and it was a big bodied deer, and it impressed me on how big that body actually was. So I got up to it, did all my video and did some intros and stuff like that. And I was sitting there and I was like, man, this body is huge. I would love to get a weight on this thing. Granted, I'm 1.5 miles back at this point. I was like, you know what? I might try to drag this out. Let's see how it goes. So I got it right there. And it's just me. I don't have really anyone around me to come help me in the close vicinity. So luckily, I brought in my recliner strap for my saddle, and I just used my normal belt that I hooked myself into the tree, my lineman's belt, as a drag rope, and that little recliner strap over the front here, and I hooked it to the back and was able to drag it pretty easy. I'm like, it's doable. Until I started going. I dragged that deer 300 yards to the next section of like canary grass. And sorry, my cat's up here. So yeah, I dragged it to
No worries.
the next section of canary grass and was just dying at that point. I was like, I mean, I could probably do it. And it's, next part about it. So I'm probably a mile and a quarter to go. And it's all gradual uphill the whole rest of the way. through 7-foot tall canary grass. And I was like, there's no possible way. So at this time, it's probably like 4 o'clock or something like that, 3:30, 4 o'clock. And so I was like, I have to quarter it up. And I brought in game bags and stuff because I knew this spot, it was a high potential that I was going to have to quarter up a deer. So I used my saddle. I put it over a dead tree at like 7 feet, and the loops that usually you hang up, like that connect your lineman's belt to the tree. I connect the lineman's belt and then use like the cinch to like raise the deer up just enough to start cording it up. So I took the hindquarters off, resituated it, got it a little bit higher, took the front shoulders off, back straps, packed. And like a rookie, I didn't realize like how much actual weight there is with everything, especially with the head and hide. And I put everything on my pack, and I was like, all right, let's get it out in one. And I get it on my back, and I get it about a foot off the ground. I'm like, that ain't happening. Put it back down. And so
Please tell me you got footage on your GoPro of you using your saddle as a hoist device and quartering.
I have a whole time lapse of the whole like quartering process. It is sweet. Yeah,
that's cool.
So then I was like, there's no way I'm making out in one. So I put the head and the front shoulders on first, and then started tracking it out. Got back to the truck, and I was dying of thirst because I didn't bring the water in, because I wasn't thinking that far ahead. So I got back to the truck, and thank goodness I keep a gallon jug of water. I call it my emergency water in the back of my truck. And I think I drank half the gallon of water when I got back, sat there for like 5 minutes. And then I was like, all right, time to get back at it again. So take off again. And mind you, to where I cut up the deer, it's probably a 35-minute walk, just walking. Yeah,
without any weight on your back.
So then I went back and packed out the rest. And by the time I got back to the truck, I think I made a video once I got back to the truck. It was 8:12. So I shot the deer at 2:30, and I got back to the truck at 8:12 at night. So it was like 5 hours and 40 minutes or something like that from the time I shot it to the time I got back to the kill. Granted, I took my time with everything, enjoyed the moment, and everything like that. But it took a lot of videos too that took up a lot of time. But still, it was crazy amount of work. And I think I said it on video too. I was like, yeah, this is a lot of work. But you know what? Even if I had a second tag, I'd be back out here tomorrow morning.
Oh hell yeah, dude! That's so cool. And those ones that you work for, that you grind for, you know what I mean? Those are the ones that go down in the memory banks as the greats. And you already kind of said that this one has a special spot in your heart for, many reasons. And that grinding it out, that earning it, for guys who are hardcore about it, and then the people we talk to on this podcast, and that's what it's about, is like that struggle, that like, I did it. Like I overcame, and I just think that's so badass, dude. I can't wait to see the video. I think it's gonna be so cool.
I can't wait for Bo to put it together. Bo does such a great job with everything. So I actually just got done putting together all the videos in like an organized file with like descriptions of what each video is, so it's easier for him to kind of go through. But I just got done with that. I want to try to dig up some old videos from the last couple of years, if I can find them. So that would be awesome to get those in there, but I'm hoping to get those over to him by the end of the week, and then he's got a couple other videos to post and edit. So hopefully by the end of the month, and hopefully a couple months, those will be out there, and it's going to be a phenomenal video. It's just going to be awesome. But I'm really excited for the mount that I'm going to do with it. So one of my really good buddies, his dad is retired and he does taxidermy. So I'm going to work with him. I want to do one of those pack out mounts to where it's like head of the deer and the rolled up hide underneath it, and then like an old wooden frame pack out. So that's kind of my plan for this mount, and I can't wait to get that thing done.
That's gonna be super badass, dude. So what did the buck, was he a 10-pointer or what did he end up being?
He was a 10-pointer. He busted off his right G2, and that was actually his longest point because you could tell by the thickness of the base. So his left G2 I think was 8 inches. So I guessed his right G2 probably around 9. That'd be my guess. I doubt it would have got to the 10, but I'm pretty sure it would have been right around the 9 inches. So he ended up with it.
Cool,
so
man.
He had enough of the nub left. It was 1 inch. So he ended up scoring 130 without that point. So with that point, I guessed him right around like the 138, 139 area.
Dude, that's a stud.
His left brow time, I think, was his left brow time was really cool. It was just under 6 inches. So I mean, it was a solid brow time.
Yeah. Hell yeah. And hey, if you ever need that G2 repaired, I know a guy who could do you.
No, I was actually thinking of you to get that done for sure. But you know what's funny?
Yeah, let me know, dude. I'd be happy to do that. But
yeah, I always have a hard time like getting points repaired because it's like I battle between like you shot him that way, you want to keep it that way, or do you want to shoot him, or do you want to have him mounted as like he actually was? Like I'm fine with both ways. I have a couple deer with broken off points, but I think this one, I want to get that point fixed just because I want to do it justice hanging on my wall for sure.
Just out of curiosity, was he one of the bucks that you had on that trail cam that you had hung outside of that bedding area?
Nope.
Never had him.
Never had him. I had a couple.
And that's the story. That's the story with cameras, right? Like they tell you a little tiny piece of the puzzle. They definitely don't show you everything that you think. So when guys are kind of waiting around for that buck they're hunting to show up on there, you're kind of missing out on probably some really good action, some really good hunting, because he doesn't have to be walking by your camera to be in that area.
And that's what I kind of found myself doing when I was in Illinois the last couple of years is like there'd be like certain times where like the cameras would be kind of dead and you're like, man, I don't even really want to go hunt. And there wasn't that excitement of like, oh, the big one could be right around the corner. And it very well could be. Like it literally takes 2 seconds for a big one to show up. And it's like, it just took that part of hunting away from me. And that's why I'm kind of going away from trail cameras, because it almost was like taking a little part of me away that got so excited about hunting Illinois, because there was always that opportunity of shooting a giant. Just like you shot your big one down in Illinois. It's like they didn't have pictures of that thing. All of a sudden it was just there.
That was one of the craziest things was like, and just like you said, I do agree with the more cameras you have, you think you're kind of doing yourself a service, but mentally you're really messing with your mind, right? And you're taking part of that fun away. It is that for sure. But like you said, Bo got me on that buck that's right in the background right here. And after we got that buck, there's a landowner who's not, his land butts right up to the stuff that we had permission on, that Bo has permission on.
Oh, I'm very familiar with that.
He said he had never gotten that deer.
Oh yeah,
you are. Shot it. And we're not going to name any names on the podcast, but this gentleman came to see it right away because he didn't believe that it wasn't a deer that he had on camera. And he flew out there and he said he had never seen it. He runs a whole bunch of cameras all along there, and then a whole bunch of neighbors. Nobody had ever seen it. And then it turned out that I think Bo said one guy to the north had a picture of it the night before running across a field, but that was the only time they'd ever seen it. And it's like, you just never freaking know. No. You can't lay it all on the cameras. You just got to go hunt.
Exactly. So basically this public land spot in hunt has gotten me probably the most excited I've ever been for like a rifle season. Cause I've been just your classic diehard archery gun season. I do it for the nostalgia, go out, hang out with some people that you're close with, that kind of stuff. I never got too excited for it. Because I still like gun hunting. Don't get me wrong. I used my great grandpa's lever action 30-30 iron sights from like the 1918, 1920, 1930 range. It's an older gun. Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
But,
that's so cool. Props to you
it's
for
so funny
doing
how
that.
this year I'm the most excited to go out gun hunting, and I'm going out gun hunting on public land. It's just wild because I'm going to the same spot. I'm going to the same spot this Saturday. So it's just.
That's really interesting. Like the story you told about the tree steps too, about how, that tree you went up in, you ended up finding an old tree step. The buck I shot on public this fall had an old tree step grown into it, had about 2 inches of step sticking out. And while I was in Illinois, down on the public down there, I actually climbed up into a tree where I rattled in a pretty nice buck. I was at full draw on him, decided to pass him. But that tree also had a tree peg that was sticking out of it. Or no, it wasn't a tree peg. It was like an old strap-on step. And it was the strap was actually grown into the tree, and the step was broken and hanging there. And I was like 15 feet up. I was like, oh, that's super cool. So like twice this season, I was in trees that, somebody thought was a good spot at one time. I just think that kind of stuff is really interesting and really cool. And I think it's really cool that you ended up killing such a good buck out of a tree. Very
it's
much
such
like
a cool tree because this tree goes up probably 50, 60 feet up in the air. And it's like the only big tree in this whole little, like I would say 80 yard circle. Just really cool. But talking about like those crew steps.
So now you're going to go smash one with your gun.
Man, that would be a heck of a year. I've yet to have a 3-buck year, so fingers crossed. But
yeah, because you did kill another good one. You killed a good one in Illinois with your bow too, right? This season.
And going off of those straps and screw and steps. I don't know if you saw it on our Instagram, our Ghost Bucks Instagram. I took a picture of this really old like wooden hang-on stand with like bungee cords as like the chains and stuff, and it was growing into the tree and it was like sticking out really far. I think I put on there like rate my setup.
Going hunting mobile is awesome. Check out my stand. Yeah, that's super cool, dude. That's
but that cool deer, I got good video of that. Obviously, it's not as cool of a story as the public land, but it's going to be a really good video on our YouTube channel again too.
Oh, your Illinois one? Was that now? I'm getting my dates all mixed up. Was that after you killed your Wisconsin buck? Or was that before?
Friday, November 1st is when I killed my Wisconsin buck. And then I think it was the next, not the next Monday, the Monday after. So technically what would it be, 9 days after I killed my Illinois buck.
Gotcha.
Very similar to my 2022
cool,
season where I killed a buck in Illinois. And then the next week I killed one in Kansas. I think it was close. No,
that was a crazy
that's on our
hunt
YouTube channel too. So that was a fun one.
Both of those bucks, I think, are on the YouTube, the Ghost Bucks YouTube channel. And that Kansas buck, did that buck have EHD or there was something goofy?
Yeah,
with
I
that
never
one,
got
right?
it tested. I probably should have. I didn't eat any of the meat or anything. It was literally just skin and bones. I think it probably was. It was either CWD or EHD. In that area of Kansas, they have both. My guess it's EHD. I think it got sick during the summer and then got through it because it still had velvet on its horns. And there was a buck on that farm the year before that was a 180 class 9-pointer. Typical 9-pointer. Definitely in the 180. The deer was nuts. And I'm pretty sure it's that deer that just got sick during the summer and didn't grow its antlers. Same antler size, frame, everything. And the brow tines were very similar. I was very convinced that it was the same deer from the year prior, just lost what would it be, 40 inches of antler. Because it was a one.
Which, I mean, Yeah, and that's very feasible if you see, anybody who's familiar with EHD, or you've even seen the pictures of what it does to those animals, and having the velvet on the antlers. I mean, a lot of them die in summer, or like late summer, early fall. But if you go check out that video when that buck walks in, it's a beautiful buck, and you made a great shot on it. But you can definitely tell that deer is like ribs are sticking out. It
You can
did
hear it
not look,
wheezing.
like a normal
Yeah, you can hear
rutting
it wheezing
buck.
as it comes
Yeah.
in.
So you did a good thing shooting that one
Oh,
for
I was a
sure, man.
145-inch 8-pointer, so it's hard to pass that one up.
I'm shooting that.
Yeah, I
You
will
know
never
it.
pass that deer up.
Oh, hell yeah, dude. That's amazing. Yeah, so I mean, just a plug for you guys and what your family's done. I think your dad and your uncle, and I mean both of your uncles have you guys have been, so serious about it for such a long time, and the Ghost Bucks thing kind of came out of that. And you and Bo have really kind of taken it over, or kind of put your spin on it, and you're really making it go here. Do you want to talk a little bit about Ghost Bucks? We mention it all the time on the podcast, but for anyone who's not heard of it, it is probably the best YouTube like bow hunting channel of just like down to earth guys getting it done and doing cool hunts. So like, tell us a little bit about
Yeah, we're
that
just trying
part
to
of it.
grow on YouTube, obviously, and on Instagram. Just started trying to get a bigger following on Instagram, but yeah, we're just trying to kind of capture like the fun of hunting and being serious at the same time, but also having fun and being educational as much as we can. Obviously, we're still kind of in the early stages within the first like 5 years of actually starting filming. I think I started filming myself about 5 years ago, and then Bo kind of followed after me. He got more serious faster than I did, and then I got more serious after he started getting serious, and that's just kind of tumbleweeded into Ghost Bucks and getting some really good video. And my uncle Doug does a really good job as well, self-filming. My dad, he got his first camera arm this year and has been doing a lot of self-filming, so that's really exciting. Hopefully he can get it done. He's heading down to Illinois tomorrow morning, so he'll be hunting the rest of the week and into shotgun season as well. He's got a shotgun tag. So, but yeah, it's been fun. It's not like we're doing this for any like sponsorships or anything crazy. It's just like we're just doing it because we want to make memories, and we want to put it somewhere where our memories are going to be forever. So it's good. It's fun. It's just really fun to all of us, and it's fun to go back and look at all these hunts and different things like that. But going back a little bit deeper into like my family, we should do like a YouTube section of like each individual of our uncles and Bo and me about all of our different bucks and stuff like that. Because I think between me, Bo, my dad, Uncle Doug, his dad, and Uncle Jeff, I bet you we have anywhere from 150 to 200 Pope and Youngs, maybe even more. I'd have to sit down and count them. But I would love to especially do one for my Uncle Jeff because he passed a couple years back, and I'd really like to kind of go through his trophy room and kind of capture kind of what he did. And he had a very unique hunting style, just to get it done and make a plan, execute the plan. And he had some great stories to go with it. So it would be great to do a YouTube segment on the Testimony to Doc, was his nickname.
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't even know his first name was Jeff, because I've only ever known him as Doc. So hey, yeah, cheers to Doc.
Cheers.
For being the guy he was, and I heard a lot of stories about him. So I'm sad I never got to meet him in person.
He was a great person. You either liked him or you didn't a lot of times, but for the most part, if you got to know him, like, you loved him. And I spent a lot of time with him when I was in college, because I went to Stevens Point for a couple of years. So that was only an hour away from his house and an hour away from our lease land at the time. And so I spent a lot of time with him. I hit a deer with my car. He had to tow my car back to his house once. During spring turkey season. There was another time I took my Honda CRV on the backside of our lease to check cameras, because it was all, like, for the most part, good trails. And I just pushed it a little too far where it got a little too wet and got it stuck. So he had to come pull me out of there one day. So a lot of good memories. And he was the most most confident person you'd ever meet for the most part. It was, he was fun.
Which is saying a lot. You guys are all athletic. You're all, like just beasts on the field, beasts in the woods. So saying he's the most confident, I would have loved to have met him. You guys have a family legacy. That's for damn sure. And anybody who's met you guys knows that the Belos you guys mean business when you're in the woods. You're all great hunters. You're students of the game. You're always willing to learn. I think that's one of the things that impressed me the most with getting to know your family was with the amount of experience that you have collectively, you still just want to learn everything you can, and you'll listen to every single person's story, whether it's a first-time kid down in Illinois. I've heard, your dad, your Uncle Doug listened so adamantly to these stories that, somebody who maybe doesn't know what the heck they're talking about telling. And I just think that part of it is so cool that there's always something to learn from everybody. And that's a little bit where this series kind of came from, was that like a story can teach you no matter where you're at. And I really appreciate what your family's brought to the table and taught me over the last couple of years of getting to know you guys. So I just think it's super cool. And the Ghost Bucks thing, seeing you and Bo kind of breathe some new life into it and have some fun with it and what's in store. I think it's going to be huge. If you guys are not subscribing to the Ghost Bucks hunting channel on YouTube, please go do that, because it's badass. You're going to learn stuff. You're going to see some cool stuff. It's entertaining. It's fun. It's a lot of work, but it's a family thing, and it's just so damn cool.
Yeah, you got it right, because like there's always a little niche that you can get into with whitetail hunting. There's always something you can do a little bit different, and there's always something that you can learn and do a little bit better next time. But leading into that, kind of bringing Ghost Bucks back to life a little bit more and like having the fun with it. Some uncut videos. Some of my favorite times was down in Illinois. It was, probably like 4 years ago now. Bo was filming me after he tagged out, and we were just having a blast. And we had some funny videos. We should try to resurface those. It was like, there was this one set in particular. He's like, okay, I'm going to do an interview. Speak up a little loud. And I had it planned in my head. I have like one of those powder windicators, and it's like 25-mile-an-hour winds. It's just whipping. And Bo's like hits record, and he goes, and then I take out my windicator without saying anything. I go puff, puff, and it just goes. And I look up at him, and I just point in that direction. I'm like, it's going that way.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff, right? Like that just makes it like so relatable and personal, because that's what hunting is about, is goofing around with your buddies and your family.
Yeah, that's the one thing that this buck.
We love bagging big bucks, but you got to have fun while you're doing it. If you get too serious, it's just not quite as enjoyable.
And that's the one thing that this year's buck missed out on, was the camaraderie of having people in and around it. But the nice thing about modern day is you're a phone call away from everyone, which really helps bring everyone in. So I did a couple FaceTimes and stuff during the hunt, so that made it seem fun. But it was also fun doing it myself as well, just to know that I can do it all myself and put in that work. But then I got to experience the camaraderie with my Illinois buck, having my dad there, my wife there, my brother there, and my little guy for the first time. I don't know if you guys seen that up on my Instagram. He was 6.5 months at the time. Got him out and took a picture with him in his little camo pants and hats. So that was really fun. And the picture turned out amazing.
It's so cute. If you have not seen it, go check it out. It's so
my wife
cute.
was behind my dad taking the picture, doing all this, like putting up her hands flat, like just making funny noises.
GoPro on her. Yeah, GoPro on her. What you got to do to get the kid to look, like, exactly. I've been there. I've been there, man. Oh, hey, well, you're going to have to keep us posted, Blake, because, Saturday opening day here in Wisconsin is a couple days away. We want to know what's going to go down in that tree. I'm really antsy to know. So you FaceTime me when you pull that trigger.
Oh, yeah. You got it. Hopefully the old 30-30 will be barking, but I wonder what the over-under is going to be on how many people I see in the woods.
you're probably going to see some orange out there, but if you get in early, that's my plan is like I pick this spot where I've got a bunch of little valleys or drainages that are coming out of a clear cut and drop down into this real thick creek bottom that's all cedars. And I'm coming in a weird way, but the whole plan is to get in early, coming in from this weird way. And then when everybody accesses down the main trailhead, hopefully, you know that effect, they push them toward me. And I think if you can probably have the same thing, especially if you're anywhere near close to private gets pressure too. And if you can be at a spot where you're getting pressure from a couple different ways, that can turn into a pretty dynamite hunt pretty quick.
Yeah, I think I'm in a really good escape corridor to get to the Cattail Marsh, because I think that's where a lot of those big bucks are going to head.
Perfect.
But I'm excited to see how you do up in the Northwoods. So you're going to have to keep me posted on your hunt. That looks like a really sweet spot. That was your video of you putting up your stand and everything, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what happens here. We're just over an hour, so I think this was an excellent first episode. So thank you, Blake, for jumping on tonight, telling us your story of your public land buck from this year in Wisconsin. That was awesome. Congratulations. Folks need to head on over to the Ghost Bucks hunting page on Instagram, Ghost Bucks on YouTube. Check it out. Bo and Blake and the rest of the team have been putting in a whole bunch of effort and work dragging camera gear just so you guys can see some really cool, fun hunts. So please go show them some love. Check it out. And I'm sure we'll have Blake back on the show here before too long. But good luck this season, buddy. It was great talking with you. And I really appreciate you jumping on and sharing your story with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And if you ever need another big buck story, I got plenty of them.
I'll be tapping that. We want to get some more.
Yep.
All right, bud. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. And make sure you say thanks to your wife. Tell her how much you love her for all that slack in that leash for you to get to go hunting. I'm heading upstairs to do the same right now. All right, buddy. Thanks a lot. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Cheers, and good luck to anybody heading out in Wisconsin for that gun opener. So have a good night, guys.
Good luck to everyone out there. Bye.